Hello everyone, it's Menenberg and it's LEQ time again. I know we've been spending a lot of time on long essay questions, but it's a hard task. It takes practice and some of us need a little bit of help. Okay, we all need a little bit of help, let's face it. So this session, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at a prompt. I'm gonna break that prompt down like I've done in other videos. But I'm also going to show you a couple of student sample thesis statements because as we've said in previous videos, thesis is the building block for a good long essay question. Without a good thesis, you are going to be in trouble for this essay. So we're going to spend some time on this and look at what's good and what's not good about these thesis statements, and hopefully you can walk away with some ideas about where you might improve or where you might, be doing something really well. So let's take a look at a prompt, shall we? The prompt is this: in Africa and Eurasia from 1450 to 1750, various forms of Islam and Christianity were key factors in the expansion of empires. Develop an argument that evaluates the extent to which the various belief systems showed continuity or change during the period 1450 to 1750. All right, let's stop for a second and just acknowledge the wording of this prompt isn't how you or I would talk to one another. It's a little challenging. And to that end, we got to break this down to put it in language or at least some level of understanding about not only what is being asked, but what does it look like to actually do this, to answer this. Because remember, in order to get a thesis point, or for that matter, really many points on the LEQ, you got to address the prompt. And this prompt gives you a broad range of parameters to operate with, okay? Most College Board prompts are going to do this. They're going to be worded in a way that gives you a lot of leeway in terms of what you can talk about. The problem is a lot of students don't get specific enough within those parameters, and they end up giving an essay that's just broad, general historical statements that don't actually deal with a lot of specific evidence, which you need. So let's go to the thesis by first breaking down this prompt. First, let's see what we got. Africa, Europe, Asia. Let's pick a geographical location, why don't we? This is a massive piece of land on the globe. Afro-Eurasia? Come on. That tells you as the reader, or rather the writer, that you can talk about anything that relates to the other stuff as long as it is in somewhere those three continents, okay? So pick two of the continents, maybe even just one. It doesn't say you have to do all three. It doesn't say you have to do two. You got to do something within the three, and that's about it. So you could do two different things within Europe, two different things within Asia, two different things within Africa, one thing from Asia, one thing from Europe. It doesn't really matter as long as it's in Afro-Eurasia. So just pick, okay? Pick. I know making a decision like that is challenging for us, but let's see how much we know about Europe or Asia or Africa and then go from there, okay? Next, we got to look at Islam and Christianity. Now, a lot of people, and teachers sometimes, will take this first statement in an LEQ prompt and ignore it and just focus on this. This is telling you what to do, but this is giving you the context in which you're doing it. So don't ignore what they give you. They're not giving you stuff just as a throwaway. So should we ignore Christianity and Islam? No. Absolutely. They're giving you a roadmap. Go with it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to talk about only Islam and Christianity. It doesn't even necessarily mean you have to talk about both of those things, but it probably would be wise and easier to write your essay about one or both of those religions, okay? And you might want to throw in something else at the end if you have time, like another, Buddhism or Hinduism, something, fine. But for this, I think Christianity and Islam is a safe place for you to operate in terms of your historical content and what you know. So let's go with that. The third thing I want to draw your attention to is this phrase, expansion of empires. I can't tell you how much I try to emphasize this type of thing in my class, but students often miss it. Especially in a remote setting, it's very easy to forget that the themes that the College Board has laid out as the framework for us understanding the historical content really is important, okay? And so when we see a phrase like expansion of empires, you should know that refers to one of the AP themes. Now, a different prompt may have one or two different themes for all I care. This prompt has two. We'll talk about the other one in a second. But if you ignore this phrase and just go with this, you might miss a lot of what you need to do in this task, in this prompt. Expansion of empires relates to the political or state building theme. And if you don't talk about state building in some way, shape, or form, you are not addressing the prompt. and your essay is going to fall very short of the bar, okay? We're trying to get you a 6 out of 6. That's not going to get you a 6 out of 6. That's not going to get you a thesis point, okay, if you don't address state building. Now, state building is talked about intelligently within the framework of Islam and Christianity, which is the cultural theme, right? That is a belief system, so that's a different theme, but they overlap in this particular prompt. You gotta talk about them both, okay? And that's why we look at this next part, which talks about the extent. Every prompt, most prompts I look at have that phrase somewhere in there. That is asking you how much. In other words, how much did belief systems like Islam and Christianity influence or shape the way empires expanded during this time period? In particular, empires in Afro-Eurasia. Okay? The last thing you're going to want to, I'm going to come back to this, but the last thing you want to pay attention to is continuity or change. Okay? Most prompts are going to give you one or the other and kind of guide you that way. In the old days, they would tell you to do both, which was a lot to do. And so if you do both, you're going to be in good shape for that complexity point, which I'll talk about at a different time. But for this, pick continuity or change. It's easier to just go with one, probably, rather than the other. But in just going back to this extent, I gotta harp on this, because if you're not talking about how much, your argument is not going to be arguable. If you're not addressing each of these parts in this prompt, it's going to be hard for you to get that thesis point, and your essay is going to struggle as a result. Okay, we're going to pause here, but when we come back, we're going to look at 3 different student samples, and we're going to look particularly at this prompt and if these student thesis statements check off all these boxes. Okay? So until then, remember, life is about choices. I'll see you next time. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions up until this point.